Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm back after a wee break. I gave myself a lovely little Jupiter and Cancer sort of convalescence period after being sick all last week. It's a bit of a lost art convalescing, and I thought, why don't I just take the weekend off? And so I'm sorry I missed you during some pretty interesting dynamics. I won't go back over the solstice because it's so close to this period of time that I'm speaking to. I'm doing this on the 23rd of June. The dynamics are similar, so I won't be reviewing the solstice chart, but I do want to say a few things about the Sun and Jupiter conjunction, which is an annual conjunction. It happens to be this time in Cancer because Jupiter has moved into Cancer since the 9th of June. And then we'll have a look at the new moon in Cancer, which is also with Jupiter. And so there's quite a lot going on around us, as you can imagine. And I also want to touch on a little bit of that as well in a more philosophical bent. Before I do, for those of you who are joining or for the first time or just only recently joined, thank you for being here. I really appreciate all the new subscribers. I'm now at 24,000 subscribers, which makes me very happy, especially because I don't monetize this channel. And so it creeps up very, very slowly. YouTube doesn't invest much in people that don't invest in it. So that is for ethical reasons. I don't support what Google is doing around the world, and I find that Google and YouTube, which of course is owned by Google and Alphabet, which is the umbrella company, can be a nefarious, agent at this time, especially now because we're coming into this age of real disinformation, and that shows up in the charts, by the way, which I'll have a look at now. And very briefly also, this was the week where I was planning to launch my beginner's course, but because I was sick and losing my voice and coughing most of last week, wasn't able to finish recording. So I will have to upload that and do that over the next couple of weeks. And I will announce the new date for the course, which is going to be more like mid-July. One of the reasons that that's actually better is that Jupiter then will be visible in the sky. So what happens is when Jupiter and the Sun conjoin, then Jupiter disappears. The Sun is far too bright and it disappears from the sky. So Jupiter has been under the beams for about the last 10 days. Yeah, almost 2 weeks. Jupiter has been especially kind of invisible. It's a way of looking at the actual sky rather than the astrological sky. And then astrologically, what that is implying is that Jupiter is coming in for a kind of a recharge. So it can lead to excess for this reason, because when the Sun and Jupiter are vying for, or rather vying for their place, their brightness in the sky, let's say, it can make it, things can go to extremes. And we've definitely seen this around the world. You may have seen this in your own life as well. So we're looking at about another 10, 11 days before Jupiter actually is visible in the sky. And that happens to coincide with just the day before the full moon that will be in Capricorn. So between this new moon and the full moon coming, we're going to have Jupiter under the beams. And so Jupiter has an orb of 11 degrees when it's conjunct the Sun. That's considered to be the orb that Jupiter is not visible or under the beams. Each planet has a different orb in that way. And so it's something that is worth bearing in mind, because that also, in astrological terms, has the implication that we're not really able to make sense of what's going on. I probably didn't need to tell you that, but it's difficult to know what is actually going on. Is it true? Is it false? Who's doing what and what's going on? Just in a general sense, there was an article yesterday about ChatGPT, or perhaps it was AI in general. I think I won't accuse ChatGPT. It was AI in general is becoming contaminated with artificial intelligence, which is almost funny, except that it's really not. What is happening is that it's picking up, it just scrapes everything off the internet, which is another reason why I don't monetize this channel, because that's what Google has been doing for years, just scraping your life, my life, and all content without any warning or recompense. So it can use that data and use that information and use images and use voices to create new things. And so we're seeing that AI because, for example, YouTube allows fully AI generated videos to be monetized and be thrown up on the channel with no consequences. There's a lot that is absolutely full of nonsense. If you listen to a couple of recent astrology channels, you'll see that there are things that come up and they're just not even talking about anything close to what's happening either in tropical astrology or in sidereal astrology. And so what this is doing is it's a feedback loop that's giving misinformation back into the data scraping that is creating the AI responses. And so where AI was anyway hallucinating and always a little bit untrustworthy, making Wikipedia look like an actually really authoritative source. It's now got to the point where even at this stage, it is almost a project that is failing because it's going to continue this scraping and contaminating itself based on the incorrect data that it keeps putting out. I sometimes check with ChatGPT what is actually going on in the transits. And this is a really interesting way for you to test if you are interested in that kind of thing. Because through a moment of paranoia, I was thinking, are we being put out of a job as astrologers because of the AI analyzing everything? And it got so many data points wrong on a simple transit chart, misplacing signs, misplacing planets. It was pretty shocking. And the thing is that anybody who wouldn't really know wouldn't have a clue that that was wrong. And yet that answer will go back in to the feedback loop. So if you do find a mistake in an answer that you get, you have to correct that mistake for the sake of the integrity of the AI. Now let's look at what we call so-called reality and see the same thing is happening on the world stage. And we see that our leaders, and here we can come to the Jupiter-Sun conjunction, in a square still with Saturn and Neptune, which has been holding for the last 5 or 6 days already, more and more even, because it was since Jupiter moved in, so the 9th of June already, pretty much 2 weeks now. We've been contending with this square from Jupiter to Saturn, and having this square combining with Neptune and now with the Sun is suggesting that we're really in a difficult place to understand what is true and what is not true for some time to come. And as this is built in also to the the solstice or the Cancer solstice of the 20th of June. 20th over to the 21st of June. This is actually going to be baked into the next 3 months as well. So we want to keep that in mind. I did post something on my community page on this channel and on Instagram as well about this notion of truth and needing to be cautious around what is true, what is not true. Also, in this square itself, it does get us in a feeling of frustration where there's something that's starting or moving in one direction and then it's blocked and it's not sure. Even with reference to this new war, the next war, the current war, the ongoing war with Iran, there's just so much misinformation, which is discouraging to say the least, and absolutely immoral and criminal. Because we're talking about human lives and the lies and the blatant lies, the provably false lies are actually causing an enormous amount of division and torment, not only in the countries concerned, but also within the countries whose leaders are doing these things, and people are not finding their voice. And this is a very, very big signature, let's say, of our times. So if you haven't read that post already, read that post in the community section on YouTube. Or on Instagram, if you're following me on Instagram. I don't usually post very much because, to be honest, I'm really not a big fan of social media. I much prefer reality in my private life, but I feel like every now and then I need to throw something up there. I think it's very important in this sense. Just like I said, we have to correct any kind of AI mistake or hallucination. We also have to stand for what is real and true. We need to be a witness to what is happening in the way that it's happening. We need to speak up to what is happening. We don't have to get involved. Often it's better not to. most often. And also having a sense of what you're standing for as opposed to what you're opposing or standing against is also much, much better. So there's two things I want to say on this. And the first is that my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, really was an extraordinary figure. And in 1966, 1967, he was asked to march against the war in Vietnam. Of course, being Vietnamese, everyone assumed he would be excited about that opportunity. This was when he was befriending Martin Luther King in New York and spending a lot of time there, had been teaching at Columbia University for a few years before that. And he said no. And the reason he said no is because we must go towards what we want as opposed to pushing against what we don't want and adding more anger and more resentment and more um, just discord to the energy field. And also to our own energy. This is the Jupiter Sun at this particular juncture is a really good opportunity to recognize what we need to take care of. Remember that the moon, which is ruling Cancer, represents the mind, and it's the mind in the sense of what we remember. It's our soul, if you like, where the sun is like the consciousness, and the moon is the inner sense of being. Here I am in this feeling nature, in this embodiment. And the moon represents our body as well, and the memory of things, the continuity of things. And so it's a good time to recognize what's going on in my mind, what's actually happening, and how am I relating to the world around. And so Thich Nhat Hanh, who we used to call Thai, meaning dear teacher, he decided he would have a march for peace. And so they marched for peace alongside the war demonstrators, the anti-war demonstrators, who were actually quite aggressive and even violent. And in his memoirs, he talked about that incident of walking so quietly, all the monks and the students of his and the followers of MLK at the time, walking very slowly in this group of people who were really thrusting and vibing around the anger and the oppression and the fury around the anti-war movement. And it was a really interesting demonstration, quite literally, between when you walk for something, especially for peace, you must also be in the peace that you want. If you want to cultivate peace, you need to start from inside. And so this is a really good time to really check in with yourself. What is it that I am feeling on the inside? Cancer is all about the feels. That's because it's ruled by the moon. And that feeling is going to be the template for everything that's spoken and everything that is done, how you act, how you reach out into the world. So a very apropos moment in time to remember, remember who you are, remember what you're here for. Which brings me to my next point, which is related, that a couple of you have written to me, more than a couple of you, and or even in our sessions last week, brought up the notion of frustration or disappointment at the current state of affairs when so much apparent work is being done to heal the planet and heal humans and raise consciousness and so on. And when people come together with the intention to heal, and especially around the 21st of June, there was a lot of those kinds of movements, meditations and channelings and all these different wonderful enterprises around that notion. The expectation is that there's going to be an effect based on what we have done. There's a few flaws in that argument. The first of which is that when we set ourselves up for an expectation, we will set ourselves up for disappointment. That's a guaranteed outcome when you have an expectation, because expectation comes from the ego. It doesn't come from the sense of I'm letting this out. I'm just going to offer this up without the expectation attached. This is the message of the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna says to Arjuna, just do what is necessary, do your dharma, do the thing that is necessary in this moment, and leave the fruits up to me, meaning Krishna, not me, meaning consciousness, the universe, and life itself. And that means that the karma of whatever you've done will end up having its consequence sooner or later, and we don't know when that's going to be. We can't set ourselves up for the sort of Santa Claus version. And here's where it refers back directly to Jupiter, that if I want something and I'm a good person and I'm a good girl, I'm a good boy, and I do the right thing and I make the right noises, that thing should come to me. And it should come to me in the form that I wish it, that I want it to happen. Alas, there is no Santa Claus. I'm sorry if the little ones are listening. And we have to grow up and grow up spiritually. Jupiter is about our wisdom. It's about spirit and how we relate to spirit. And often what is missing from these notions of, thinking our way into a result that we desire is that we're doing that from a place of ego and desire nature, not from a place of genuine love. Again, if we come back to the example I just gave of Thich Nhat Hanh, the Zen monk and Zen master walking in peace quietly, he would be yelled at. The group was being yelled at by all of these anti-war protesters who wanted to go faster. They were disturbing the flow. And it just shows you that when you think you're doing one thing, you can actually be doing something quite different. You know, that expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So beware of your good intentions. And this is why there's a certain feeling of letdown after having done, which is what people were writing to me about, after having done these series of, meditations and channelings and all these beautiful get-togethers over the solstice. Then war starts. It didn't start, by the way. It's been ongoing. It's an ongoing story. You just haven't really been paying attention. It's just now coming to the headlines, but it's been an ongoing story. And the whole point is that you're not playing God. This is about living a human life and about being in this dynamic of collective consciousness as much as your own. And this is what we get this time round. This is the life that we have. Now, what we can work on is ourselves and the way that we relate to life itself. The way that we relate to what we're doing and how we're thinking and how we're understanding things, which are all Jupiter words, understanding and deep thought and wisdom and spiritual or religious belief and faith. And faith is not necessarily, shouldn't perhaps be tied with a particular creed. It's just having faith that life itself will take care of itself. So really reflect on the intentions behind the different ceremonies that are being done and so on. Can you offer it up and not worry about the outcome? Are you free from it, or are you so attached to the outcome, which all traditions have warned us about, the being attached, having expectations, having a desire for a result? It sets you up to fail. It sets you up for disappointment because you're not doing it from a purity of heart. So this is one of the things that you can do when you're practicing these things, is to really just question yourself, what is the outcome I'm expecting here? And would I be okay if I didn't get that outcome? Should I just do the thing and leave the fruits up to the universe? So leave you with that thought in terms of the energy of this month, not just this moment, and for the duration of Jupiter moving through Cancer, which is from the 9th of June of 2025 till the 29th of June of 2026. So we've got a long journey of Jupiter. Another thing I wanted to bring up, and another complaint that I'm getting sometimes in the comments and sometimes in sessions with people, is that here we have Jupiter exalted. Now, especially because Jupiter has just entered in at the world point. So that was when Jupiter moved into Cancer. That was the solstice. That's in the way that we measure the solstices. It's when the sun crosses into the zero point, or the zero Aries point of the cardinal signs. So whether that's Aries or Cancer or Libra or Capricorn, there's a shift. And Jupiter crossed that point on the 9th. Then the sun crossed that point to meet Jupiter just a few days ago. Now on the 24th, which is the chart that we have in front of us, the 24th of June, at almost 4 p.m. Universal Time, we have Jupiter and the Sun actually meeting, but they've been really closely together since the Sun ingressed almost 5 days ago. So what we're dealing with here is what everybody's calling an exalted Jupiter, and of course I use that word as well. That's part of the astrological delineation. And an exalted Jupiter will bring pure results from Jupiter in terms of the domain that it's moving through. And that does not equate with getting what you want. Because remember, we're not talking about Santa Claus. We're talking about Jupiter, which is wisdom and our highest benefit, our greatest good. And our greatest good does not always look like the thing that we want, whether that's collectively or individually. It is also constrained not only by the laws of karma and everything that we have done up until this point, but also quite literally so from an astrological point of view, because Jupiter is still being squared by Saturn. So I want to speak to you as the poster girl from of the Jupiter Saturn square, because I have one in my chart. I've just gone through it because my Jupiter is in Gemini and my Saturn is in Pisces. And that square is always a trigger for something that ends up having to change. It's where you get in, you're going in one direction, and then things hold you back. And my example is quite literally becoming ill last week. 2 weeks ago, I started feeling so run down, but I couldn't stop the momentum of what I was doing. Let's say it better. I didn't stop the momentum of what I was doing and had so many things to organize and deal with that I ended up slowly getting sick. And so that ended up having to push my plans for the whole of last week forward. I had to rearrange several appointments. And thank you, by the way, for those of you who allowed me to rebook you because there was just no way that I could manage. Um, but it is just an example of how the Jupiter-Saturn will mess up, let's say, the quality of the Jupiter that we're expecting. And now on top of that, we have the Neptune also in a square to Jupiter, and our expectations may not be realistic. Um, they may not be even achievable. They may just be in the realm of idealism and fantasy. And again, that's where I come back to the solstice point, where there were a lot of very highly idealistic ideas bandied about how things will shift. We need to be humble in the face of Jupiter. Humility is coming from Saturn. The quality of humility says, I do my part, I do what I can, and I leave the rest to the divine. So our relationship with divinity needs to have that quality of humility. And if we bring the ego desire into it, again, we set ourselves up for disappointment. And that actually starts to erode faith. Because what we've interpreted as faith is, I get what I want when I pray for it. And that's not faith. Again, that's asking Santa Claus for nice things because I've been a good boy or a good girl. So we have to really be careful how we're setting ourselves up. Are we genuinely in our own faith, our deepest faith? Can we put our trust in life itself, even when things are not going our way? Can we have that solid core of, I just do the thing I need to do and I leave the results up to the universe? And in doing so, you end up also doing things that you didn't expect to do. You might find yourself pulling away from things. This has been my intuition the last week, is to do less, to talk less, not intervene in any of these different events, because there was just too much noise and too much chaos around what was going on. It wouldn't have helped me or anybody else to try and parse that together, especially because we're in a fast-paced dynamic. And when I say fast-paced dynamic, it's not just now, but we're in a time where things are happening way too fast for our human mind to grapple with. So we need to, once again, come closer into our lived, embodied experience of life. And that again refers to Cancer, the feeling of the body, the quality of sensations, recognizing our emotions, recognizing our needs, nurturing, convalescing, taking care of the things that need to be taken care of in this moment, and pulling the mind closer and closer and closer into the present moment. It's very difficult to do so when there's this kind of energy buzzing all around us. And the only way really through that is to pull away from much of the energy. You can observe, you can watch. As I said, we need to also be a witness to what is true and what is let's say just or fair or unjust and unfair. We should be speaking up around things that we notice are unfair. They're harmful, they're causing harm. But then we need to do that in such a way that we can actually elicit some kind of change. And usually, yelling out in the street is not going to do that. It's not going to bring much except stir up the anger and frustration that's already inside. And that was the teaching of Thich Nhat Hanh almost 60 years ago. So at this time, we have also to add to the challenge of the square from Jupiter, Sun to Saturn and Neptune, we have another complication, which is that as the Sun and Jupiter meet, we've got the moon in a square to the nodal axis. Now, the moon on top of that is in Gemini. Moon in Gemini is an extremely busy moon. It's very much related to the mental activity, the fluctuations of the mind, the agitation, the nervous agitation of the quality of air, which is all about the movement and connections that we need to be together, to join together. Now we're moving into this big air element. As soon as Uranus moves into Gemini, it's going to magnify all of what we're seeing in the last couple of years. That element of air is overthinking, over communicating, overactive, overstimulated. And it can also bring about better communication. There may be lots of advantages alongside the challenges, but from a human perspective, we need to be cautious around what we're engaging in because the challenges are real. So when the moon is squaring, if we think of this on a mundane level, the moon represents the people. And here we have the Gemini quality of communication and thinking what we want out of a situation is based on our thoughts. But it can also be stimulated through gossip as well. Gemini is the gossipy placement in the chart. Talking about the he said, she said, and all of that kind of thing, which is part of where we also get into trouble because Mercury is so fast that it doesn't stop to, like Jupiter does, to reflect on, is this true? Is this right? Is it actually happening? We've got Mercury ruling that moon in Cancer. Mercury is also ruling Mars and the South Node at the same time. So there's a lot to do with something that we're feeling. Our emotionality is really strong at this point. And from a mundane position, our national pride and our fear around what is going on collectively is also engaging in that. And as the moon is squaring the North Node in Pisces, that's the kind of solution where we're aiming for, what we're hoping to go towards is that North Node quality, which is ruled by Jupiter. It's really about trying to find a spiritual understanding or a wise path towards collaboration and connection with each other. So it's a challenge. It's a direct challenge from the people to the leaders, and this is also, by the way, the Jupiter Sun in a square to Saturn Neptune leaders, challenges to leaders, not just one, but many. This will be the theme, especially of the next 3 months, but also I think of the entire time that we're going to have Saturn in Aries, and especially while Jupiter is also in a sign-based square in Cancer. So that's a year for the square, but also 2.5 or more years with Saturn in Aries. So the notion of the loss of our leaders, the loss of our connection to what we thought was truth, whether it be through ChatGPT or gossip or our own disappointments in the things that we thought we were trying to achieve, and did they succeed or not? All of that is highlighted at this time. And that Sun-Jupiter conjunction stands for a year. It's a new cycle of Jupiter. Each time the Jupiter-Sun conjoins, last year it was in May, I think it was the 18th of May, 2024, because Jupiter was in Gemini. But this year we've got Cancer. So the Cancer flavor, let's say, is very, very strong in this new cycle of Jupiter. I've got this panting dog here, and I can't deal with you right now. So you have to go lie down, and I'll see you later. And we'll just say hello to everybody. Metta's as shy as I am, but here, there's Metta. I'm not sure what she's asking for, but she can't have it right now. All right, off you go. Metta's a Cancer, by the way, and I adopted her through neighbors of friends of mine, and it just so happens that her sun is conjunct my ascendant, because of course it is. And that's the way that goes. I have a Cancer ascendant. And so she's very food motivated, as am I. And also she's got a Leo moon, and she's also very attention motivated. So anyway, that was Metta. So where was that taking us? Yeah, so the leadership issue is a big one for this season, let's say. We are going to lose a lot of leaders in this period of time. And it's showing from that Jupiter with the Sun in a square to Saturn and Neptune, both of which had their individual squares. So there were really like a series of squares going on: the Sun square Saturn, Sun square Neptune, Jupiter square Saturn, Jupiter square Neptune, and all of them then combined at once. It's pretty intense. Now that is separating that square, so it does mean it's tapering off. The peak has happened. The peak happened already in terms of the Jupiter-Saturn square that happened already last week. So let's say a week before the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, we were already in the thick of it, and that is when this war with Iran really took off. I don't want to speak too much about mundane stuff because I really don't want to be divisive. People in the comments just always would end up going berserk. And I would rather not, but I just want to say, if you're interested in mundane astrology, set your charts for the solstice that happened in Tel Aviv, and then the solstice that happened in Tehran, and you will see that the chart will tell you the story of how this is panning out for each one. So the Israeli chart suggests a Pisces midheaven along with the North Node, which is less than favorable in terms of success, because Jupiter was just below the ascendant, below the horizon, while the Sun was above it. The Sun was exactly on the ascendant, and it's under the beams. So that's not favorable. It's not a great placement while Jupiter's under the beams. It's a bit debatable because then it means that it's a day chart where Jupiter is actually the greater benefic. Um, and yet at the same time, Iran had Saturn conjoining the midheaven. So the midheaven was at the midpoint between Saturn and Neptune in Aries. And that was very clearly a day chart because the rising, the ascendant was well below the threshold where Jupiter and the Sun were very clearly rising. And so it does suggest that Iran has longevity in terms of this battle, has the capacity to sustain what is going on in a way that Israel does not. And again, I just want to repeat for the peanut gallery that that is not a political statement. That's just saying what the astrology is telling me. So if you're interested in the mundane astrology, set those charts. Just look at the solstice chart for each of those capitals before comparing that to their actual national chart, and you'll see that the story of what's going on is built into the solstice chart. Also looking at the condition of Mars. Anyway, so moving right along, we have a couple of other things that are very active at this time. One of which is, again, this is with reference to the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, which is a bit of let's say it's a theme for a very long time because it's setting up a whole year-long cycle of Jupiter. We have Black Moon Lilith in a very, very, very tight opposition to Uranus. And Uranus has been, of course, making its way through Taurus, and it's almost at the very end of Taurus right now. It's no longer in orb of Algol. So Algol's orb is 2 degrees and 12 minutes. As far as I can tell, it's no longer in that orb. But it's worth paying attention to this opposition with Black Moon Lilith, because Black Moon Lilith is at the end of Scorpio. And there's a nefariousness around the Black Moon Lilith energy, especially in a mundane chart. In a personal chart, that would be slightly different, equally chaotic, but different. Um, and that means that there's treachery or secrecy or just basically, I think the official term is shit disturbance between the two. Black Moon Lilith in opposition to Uranus is never good, certainly at the anaretic degree of these two fixed signs, which have to do with secrecy and trust and money, money, and power, the power dynamics in the scorpionic sense, and then the money and the stuff and the values, which is exactly what is going on in the world around us. Everything, without exception, is about power and money. There's no religious war. There is no other circumstance going on. It's about power and money. And here we really see that crystallized with that Uranus opposition to Black Moon Lilith. And I also just want to mention that the word is anaretic. It is not anorexic. It is not anything else. Often I hear people saying anorectic, and that isn't a word. So it's anaretic, which means in the very final degree, which is a critical degree, which is an unstable degree, because it means that the shift is about to happen. Hasn't happened yet, but we know it's coming. And it's kind of like yesterday I had a client. And the poor thing, she had to sit with me for 3 separate times where I was trying to sneeze and I couldn't sneeze. It's that feeling. It's this feeling of, I got to sneeze and I know it's there. And so it's preventing me from really being clear about what I'm trying to do here, but it's not coming. So eventually the sneeze comes, and eventually Uranus will tip over into Gemini, and I'll do the next video on that. That'll be the 7th of July. But at this point, we're in a peak of instability, and it brings us to this peak of unconscious fear, conscious fear even, and frustration, and everything that comes through that. To add to the fun, we also have Pluto in a very interesting quincunx, or also called an inconjunct, to this combination of the Jupiter Sun, as well as having only just the day before perfected its inconjunct or quincunx to Mars. So it's super unstable, tense energy that requires a lot of adjustment. And for this reason, especially because Jupiter itself is under the beams of the Sun, this is why we need to slow things down and maybe just come into ourselves and quieten down. Be careful of what you're advocating. Be careful of what you're sure of. That may be the best way of saying it. Ty also did this calligraphy, and one of my favorite ones that I have is just, are you sure? And it's possibly the only question you need to ever ask yourself. Am I sure? The answers generally surprise. And so here, with this instability also built in, we also have a little bit of a boost from Mars. It is separating again, but Mars is also adding energy of motivation and drive. And yet the problem is that we can't actually do anything with it. Mars is also, sorry, my phone is making strange sounds and I don't understand why. All right, never mind. Maybe it's Pegasus. Maybe they're following me. Anyway, so that Mars is also in conjunct Saturn and Neptune, which it's ruling, and it has been all last week, which is also part of this whole war scenario, because there was this yod. I forgot to mention this creates a yod with Pluto at the tip of the yod. And so Jupiter, Sun, Pluto, and Mars creating a yod. Now before this, the week before, we had Mars, Pluto, as well as the Mars-ruled Saturn and Neptune creating this yod, with either Pluto or Mars being the focal point of those things. So, which explains the energy of the times that we're in. So that's a lot. I realize it's heavy, it's a lot, but at the same time, when you really make your peace with the fact that this just is what it is, rather than railing against it and rather than trying to, shout against thunder and exhaust yourself or create more chaos or create more anger around you, it's better to accept that this is what it is, and then with the next breath you say, what can I do in this moment? And often the best thing to do is come back to your breath, come back to your feeling, the body, the moon, Cancer energy of how am I doing? And then the next thing that you do will carry that energy of how you're doing in this moment. So all the better. Um, yeah, so let's see what else I had to mention about here. We've got Venus also in a very interesting sextile. She's moving into a sextile with the North Node and the trine to the South Node. So that's one very nice thing. That's one very, very positive dynamic here. Venus can help us in terms of finding our values, finding our way through what is important to us, how we can connect on the basis of our values. As Mercury is also approaching the anaretic degree, remember, not anorexic, not anorectic, it is also going to be telling us a lot about the quality of the South Node and Mars. So Mercury is now ruling Mars for the next 6 or 7 weeks to come. And as it's doing that, it means that Mars itself is not entirely stable. Although it is in an Earth sign, it's still ruled by Mercury, which means that things are in flux constantly, and it adds to the mental agitation that we're experiencing. There might be also this general feeling of dissatisfaction, and that's part of the dynamic of Mars in Virgo. And then Mars itself in July will be approaching the South Node. And again, I'll do a separate video on that, where we're really being asked to surrender something and let go, release, 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 release. And notice where the dissatisfaction is coming from a thought as opposed to the actual circumstances. Probably, if you're listening to this, you're not getting bombs dropped on your head. So things are already pretty good. So let me have a look now at hang on just a minute. This is the Cancer new moon. That is the day after Jupiter and the Sun conjoin. We have a lot of similar qualities, so I'm not going to repeat what I've already said, but just to say, once again, now we have this big dynamic of a new cycle that's now in like factor 50, because we not only have this new cycle of of Jupiter in Cancer, but we also have a new moon in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon. Now, what's interesting about this is that the moon is under the beams of the sun. That's what's the no moon day, or the black moon, the moon that we don't see. And we also have Jupiter still under the beams, again, for another 10 days or so following. So there's a big story of things that are hidden, things that are germinating, you could say. And it's a good time then to reflect on the things that you want to start to cultivate, what you want to seed, what you want to move forward with. So don't think in terms of the ingress of, let's say, either the Sun or Jupiter as being the seeding moment, but think in terms of this as a process of gardening and tending to those seeds, planting them, giving the right conditions. And probably you won't see much happening until the full moon. Not just because it's the full moon that reveals what's been going on behind the scenes at the new moon, but because Jupiter will then finally become stronger. What I didn't already mention, and I intended to, in terms of the earlier mention of Jupiter and what people expect from it, especially in good dignity, people will say, I'm not getting the benefit everybody wants me to get. Everybody's saying this will be great, it'll all be great. The thing is, it does depend on the nature of your Jupiter. For example, I have a Jupiter in Gemini. It's in detriment. It's in the opposite sign of its rulership, which is Sagittarius. And so it's not necessarily ever going to bring me the best quality. I have to work towards that Jupiter. I have to make adjustments. It's not going to be pure dumb luck in the way that other people with much more powerful Jupiters will have. The other way of looking at Jupiter in Gemini is that it's in the derived 12th house from Cancer. So there's something that is being taken away from the quality of Jupiter where it's in its exalted point. And so that's a kind of a double bind. And you'll find that often that that the quality of, for example, Venus in Aries is not just because she's ruled by Mars, but it's also because Aries is the 12th house from Taurus, which Venus rules, for example. And the same thing happens with Venus in Virgo. But that's part of the beginner's course that I'm preparing. So you'll have to tune in for that separately, which is all, by the way, pre-recorded. There's no date that you have to sign up for it. It's just going to be ready when it's up on my website, and you can follow along in your own time. So all of this to say, if you think I'm not getting the results, then check your own Jupiter and check the condition of that Jupiter. The way to remedy Jupiter not giving you what you want is often to turn yourself towards your divine nature. And this would be the ideal outcome. And especially now that we have the North Node ruled by Jupiter in Pisces. So that North Node in Pisces with a Jupiter rulership now in very strong dignity is a really good time to put your attention on what you consider to be divine, what you know about yourself to be divine, what you know about this lifetime, this cosmos, this planet to be divine, and to work through that as opposed to asking Santa Claus for nice things. If you work in the way that is only about cultivating material things, there will again be this friction of disappointment, a feeling of lack, because you're asking for stuff as opposed to asking for abundance. And that's a very different request. Jupiter represents abundance, but it doesn't mean it's going to be raining down cash. It means that you're going to be able to have the wisdom to recognize abundance and also live in that way. For example, I have Jupiter in the 12th house in my chart in Gemini for a Cancer rising. And that one of the solutions for that, because it's the house of loss, is to donate. So I give things away a lot, money or objects or time. I give things away as a way of remedying that Jupiter, and it brings me more. So it's the joy of giving that actually paradoxically brings me more. And when you figure that out, when you get that dynamic, you become really, really attuned to it, and then the fear of lack just doesn't come in. So we're in a separating square still with Saturn. Jupiter and this new moon are squaring Saturn, squaring Neptune. So reminder that we can't really fully trust what's going on in terms of what people are saying, how people are expressing themselves, what the government is saying. I did forget in the previous section to talk about the Mercury squaring Chiron. It's still in application. It's been the case since the solstice as well. Mercury has been squaring Chiron for the last few days. And so this is also a part of that healing of how we communicate or how we think, how we connect with what we need to feel secure based on what we think we're capable of. And you can think about that collectively as well as individually. And we still, at the new moon, or let's say once again at the new moon, have the opposition from Black Moon Lilith to Uranus. It's a little less tight. So remember, it was almost exact as Jupiter and the Sun were conjoining the day before. But nonetheless, that opposition is holding. And it means that we're still in this element of mistrust and fear, a fear of lack, a fear of trust, of how do we trust, how do we reach into connection, how do we reach into abundance, all of the things that are being disturbed at this time. Just as I'm saying that, a very funny ambulance sound is going by. Maybe you've heard that. Belgian ambulances have a particularly strange sound, which John Oliver did a piece on many years back, which was quite funny. And then again, bless whoever's in that ambulance. I think I've said what I need to say. And so, just to clarify again, that sextile from Pluto is part of the bigger story. We're getting this big story of the sextile from Pluto, Saturn, Neptune for the next year. It's baked into this as well. And now we have even a tighter sextile that's still been holding for the last few days between Mars back to the now new moon and Jupiter. So that's just giving us the engine to do. We now have the capacity to do. A sextile is not compelling. You need to take action. But there's a certain motivation, there's a desire. But remember, as it's in conjunct many important factors, and it's not really very, very strong where it is, it's worth waiting, knowing, draw up your list. It's Mars in Virgo, so make your lists. Put your schedule together and then just get busy and do the thing that needs to be done. Mercury will be moving into Leo. That's a whole separate story because that's part of the retrograde cycle as Mercury goes into Leo. And you're going to find that spans basically July and into August. So for 2 months, we'll have Mercury in fire, ruling the South Node. So let me stop there and switch now to talking about the sign by sign so that we can follow along. Let's see, I try not to lose this if I go forward. What shall I do? Yes, okay, we'll do it this way. All right, so here we have Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Now, please listen to the description for all signs. When I talk about the Sun, it's you and it's your consciousness, it's your awareness that here I am and I have a purpose and I'm alive for a reason at this time. And that might extend to your career or a sense of what you're doing and how you're doing it. And it's also the men in your life. The solar masculine is all to do with the Sun. If you have Aries rising, this will manifest in a way that's more obvious to you. It sort of takes place in those areas of life that I'm going to describe here in a way that seems more concrete, let's say, or more evident. And if you have an Aries moon, this will be very much related to how you're feeling about things, the state of mind, your emotional sense, your physical body, your house and home, your connection to the feminine nature or nurturance, the mother type figures, or even the actual home that you live in. All the more so, especially for Aries, because this new moon is happening in your fourth house. So that applies to all signs, but especially, here we go, if you are an Aries sun, moon, or ascendant, this is going to be a new start in your area of home. A new moon is always where we're beginning something. It's planting seeds. As I said in the introduction, don't anticipate things to happen too quickly. The tradition usually says give it at least 2 or 3 days till you see the sliver of the moon before you take action on the seeds that you planted. And in this case, it might be good to keep going slowly, slowly, slowly forward and then wait for the full moon to see, am I going in the right direction? And notice then that there's some more evidence that things are working in the way that you had hoped that they would. And so with Aries in general, you've got Saturn and Neptune in your sign for a very, very long time to come, and it's squaring this moon. So there's something that is holding you back or that you need to deal with. There's something you need to take responsibility for or that you need to work harder for. That's affecting the quality of this fourth house story. And for you, the fourth house story is really about your family, but not just the family. It can also be your what in general makes you feel the connection to your lineage, and it can include your biological family, and it can also include your national family, your homeland, the people that you come from. There might be some really strong relationship to what has gone before ancestrally, especially because Jupiter in the fourth is ruling the North Node in your 12th house of ancestors. This applies for the next year. But there's something new here. There's something either of a new dynamic or a new relationship or a new circumstance around those things. It can quite literally be a new home, that I'm moving, I want a new place, I need a new environment, I need to feel secure about something, I need more of a sense of groundedness and security. Just as I said in the introduction, think from the inside out, and especially with Jupiter, come to this place of faith. Develop yourself through the spirit of whatever you have faith in. The outer form of religion will cause separation and strife. If you go straight to the essence of the religion, which is the spirit of it, you'll find your succor, you'll find your place of ease. If that's not in terms of a religious sense, then come through it from a psychological sense. How can I calm my mind? How can I bring myself to this place of ease and comfort and joy and happiness and a sense of being stable and grounded? Mercury, which rules your third house of the mind, is in the fourth house. So there's a whole lot of thought going on at this time around these things. And then that Mercury is also ruling your sixth, where your ruler Mars is. So there's also a whole lot of thought around how this affects me every day, or how does this affect my health? So we see that a lot of your attention from the South Node going through the sixth house is about letting go of a way of being in your everyday that might be literally letting go of anxiety, letting go of fussiness, letting go of needing things to be a particular way. And especially because this is an opportunity with Mars going through the sixth house to take action on those things. Your ruler, Mars, is always kind of like your little icon. It's taking you through the charts, like the game piece. If you're the player, and that's that game piece, that's Mars. And so where Mars is very important for you in the next 6 or 7 weeks. That takes you through to the end of July, and your focus is really on how am I day to day? What's my day-to-day stuff? There's a lot of effort going into that, so you're in good hands in the sense that you're going to be working hard. You will strive to overcome whatever the obstacles are, whatever the things are that need to be dealt with. But at the same time, the Mars in the sixth can cause disruptions in your health as well. It can disrupt in the sense of inflammation, agitation. So generally speaking, Jupiter in the fourth can improve your mood quite a lot, but it's challenged for now, for the next couple of weeks. It's challenged by Saturn. So I suspect that most of you are feeling a bit more frustration than ease at this stage. Aries doesn't get along with Saturn because Saturn is like, slow your roll, sit with it for a bit and really reflect on this. And Aries is just, let's do this thing, man, let's go. Aries is also quite self-focused, self-centered, and Saturn is saying, is this good for everyone? Is this going to bring the results that will bring stability and long-term benefit for everyone? That's one of the reasons Saturn does so well in Libra, because Libra is thinking about us and how this might affect other people. And it stabilizes that balance, trying to find the equilibrium, trying to find the balance, where Aries is just like, I want this, I want to do this thing, let's go. The other challenge is that, of course, Neptune is squaring both this moon as well as Jupiter. And so there might be some confusion also around your direction, what to do, how should I do this? How is this all panning out? Saturn rules your 10th house of career and your 11th house of your future, where we find Pluto changing your mind around what it is that you want going forward, or how you connect with society and how you connect with the people around you. And so there is something here that will be feeling frustrating for you. So let it pass. Let it pass. Don't worry about it. Everything that's happening, if you notice the chart for Aries, everything is happening under the surface. So things are changing deep inside. You're moving through something that is changing deep inside. So it's a good time to just work through these things in a way that allows you to digest bit by bit what it is that you're going towards. And just in a couple of short weeks, you'll be able to move forward in a completely dynamic way, totally different way. So good luck with all of this, Aries, and I'll see you in the next video. And now, Taurus, this new moon is happening in your third house. Your ruler, Venus, is in your sign. So that's very nice. So you might be feeling quite optimistic about this. And then Jupiter and the new moon in your third house is suggesting that there's a lot of connection in your everyday life with people that you care for. That might be your extended family, cousins, siblings, the people that you care for in general. And Jupiter is ruling the 11th house as well, and the North Node is there. So there's also a whole focus on your future at this time as well. That is coming from the choices that you make. The third house also represents choices that are centered in your emotional security. And here there's a whole big start, fresh new start here in that third house that can also have you moving. The moon represents housing and home and so on, especially in the sign of Cancer. And with Jupiter going into the third house, maybe there's a desire to change your residence, to move somewhere else, to or perhaps to engage differently in the dynamic of your neighborhood, the local space that you live in. This could be around journeys, traveling, journeys of, some kind of practical sense, and doing this for that particular reason, some more practical movement, practical connections, or practical learning as well. And then we've got also a square to Saturn-Neptune in your 12th house. And Saturn-Neptune squaring from the 12th to the 3rd can also imply some greater journeys that are part of a mental or psychological or even spiritual journey, which can have something to do with recognizing patterns that are not helpful for you, that might have been something that is putting a brake at the moment on what your plans are in your 3rd house. So your busyness, your activity, that 3rd house quality. My mother, for example, has a Taurus sun, and she has a Virgo rising, and the South Node just crossed her Virgo rising and squared Mars, and she fell and has had quite a serious accident. And so she's been in hospital also for the last 10 days. And that was also part of my Mars squaring Uranus story. And so this, for Taurus, hopefully this is not your story, but the Saturn in the 12th can represent confinement as well. It can represent things that are hindering you, holding you back, and that require more of your attention. So again, it's not going to be everybody's story. It's just one example of this. So this can be a real spiritual awakening from that point of view of recognizing, because of that Neptune in particular, recognizing something that is waking up inside of you, in your unconscious or in your connection to life itself. Saturn, Neptune, especially because also Chiron is there with Aries in the 12th house, can have anyway been showing you, for Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, a lot around your limitations in life and the things that you need to choose differently based on what you want to, how you want to connect spiritually with your life. There may be something to do with issues around how you reach out into your career or into society in general, because Taurus rules your 9th and 10th house. So there may be some sense that I can't right now, I need to pull back, or there's an obligation, I have to come back in and not be super active out in the world. Things are changing over the long term with the Pluto in the 10th, changing your relationship to how you show up in the world and the social status in general, and maybe your career ambitions. This can also have to do with long-term or long-distance rather travel. Saturn in the 12th ruling your 9th house of long-distance travel, foreigners, and so on. And of course, the Jupiter and Moon conjunction and the new moon in the 3rd is all about travel. And then you've got Mercury there as well, which also refers to travel. And so there may be some plans that you have underway, but you're now rethinking your plans around travel. It would be a short-term adjustment, or an adjustment based on something that you see is no longer in your interest, because now you're more aware of something. Let's say your holiday destination has turned into a war zone. That wouldn't be surprising. Or there's some reason that it's become maybe too expensive, for example, to travel, which is also happening. Also, something I didn't mention is Jupiter going into Cancer, that can cause inflation, especially Jupiter's Sun conjunction would signal that. So we can expect a certain amount of inflation as well, particularly as Jupiter's ruling the North Node right now. So Taurus, the other thing is, I'll do another video about this, but at the end of June, we've got Venus connecting with Uranus in your 1st house. So this is actually quite an interesting dynamic, something that you might find very surprising about yourself, or that you're connecting in a new way to others, or your values are changing, or your sense of self is changing. And either way, it can be quite interesting, quite positive, and will bring you into a whole new sense of self. So I think that's it for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Oh yeah, be careful, you especially, just be careful with issues around intimate relationships or the one-on-one dynamic, business partners, or yeah, especially maybe also children, because Mars, which is ruling your seventh, is in your fifth house. It could be romantic partners as well, or business partners, because the fifth is entrepreneurial stuff as well. And the seventh is your partnerships and clients and so on. Just be careful of things like, mistrust or paranoia or feeling unsettled around dynamics in relationship. Take a breath. It's fair to say, look before you leap, and if you don't feel the trust, then obviously just take a minute. But also don't react too strongly. You do have a lot going on in your third house, which is all about communication, and you might find yourself in a situation where you are over emotional, you overreact in some way to a situation which actually might end up kind of blowing over and not being such a big deal. Trust your instincts. That's also the Saturn-Neptune in the 12th. Maybe Chiron also playing that role in the 12th, where you're attuned more to yourself internally, attune more to your gut instinct and trust that. Okay, so Taurus, make the most of this. I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, your ruler is in the second house along with this new moon and Jupiter. So a lot going on in your life around the issues of money and your possessions and what you value, and especially family, what supports you through family. It looks like there's a lot more going on around family support, what you can connect with in family dynamics. This is also the house of speech, quite literally speaking, and especially with Mercury there, you might find that you actually are ready to speak more emotionally about something. The third house is communication, more like how do you do it? But that Mercury in the second might just make you feel like I really have to get this off my chest. I want to say this thing. The new start for you is around your values, around money, around maybe your earnings as well, earned income, maybe your investments or how you manage your money. Venus is ruling your fifth house, and she's currently strong in your 12th, though she's not too super happy in the 12th house, but she's in her own sign, so she's comfortable at the very least. But Uranus is also there, and so if there is some kind of issue around investing, just know that that can also represent some kind of letting go of money. There may be some loss around money as well. So Venus represents your fifth house of also children and love and your self-expression. And that can also be something to do with the 12th house of faraway lands and places that people go where you're not seeing any longer. Either they're too far away or you're disconnecting in some way on either side, that you're separating out. The south node is going through your fourth house. So there's a change at home. Maybe your children are, flying the nest, and it's now time to revise what family represents, because family is a big thing for you right now with all that Cancer energy for Gemini. And that would especially apply to the Gemini rising and moon. But also, of course, the sun is very important. That's your concept of yourself. So Mars is in the fourth house, so that also implies a certain amount of separation. Something changing, something that you're acting into or upon, maybe needing to fix. And again, that can be mental or psychological agitation as well, where there's a feeling of I need to get stuff done from this place of feeling uncomfortable, feeling frustrated. There's something I don't like about whatever's going on. You share the ruler with your fourth house. So Virgo and Gemini are both ruled by Mercury, which is in the last 2 or so degrees of Cancer at the time of this new moon. And that Mercury is about to change into your third house, where you're going to have quite a lot to communicate as well. So whatever this is, think of taking your emotional experience, what you value, what you feel you're connected in terms of your value, and be prepared to express that, or be prepared to make a choice based on that when Mercury goes into that third house. that might have something to do with your security overall, your life security, or you're feeling safe and grounded because of that Mars dynamic in your fourth. This might have to do with work as well. Mars rules your sixth house of everyday work and the obligations that you have to fulfill every day. And it also rules your 11th house of the future, where we find Saturn and Neptune still lurking in this square between the 11th and the 2nd. So maybe this is also financial, especially because of that Venus deal. The second house is a money house. The 11th house is the house of gains from what you do. And we're looking at something tying into your career because Jupiter in the second house is ruling your 10th where the North Node is. So maybe you're kind of waiting for news about income or news about, how you're getting money from another source. Saturn rules your 8th house, so that might be an inheritance, a source of money that just comes from another activity, for example. You also have the Uranus opposition from Black Moon Lilith from the 6th to the 12th house. So that is the angle of the victim martyr or the kind of long-suffering issues where there may be some frustrations boiling over. That's also the angle of open enemies versus hidden enemies, or at least obstacles and challenges versus the things that you are actually ready to deal with. So there may be something that comes up in a way that surprises you around what it is that now you're ready to grapple with. So remember that you are the one that's going to be most affected by this Uranus ingress into Gemini, into your sign. So you're feeling it in a very itchy way. You're feeling this, the Mars going into your fourth house. You've already had Mars squaring Uranus, which is putting you under quite a lot of pressure, so that you might be feeling this general edginess or agitation. So lean into the Jupiter new moon conjunction there, and really lean into your emotional sense, make sense of that from within. Get a really clear sense of what you need to do with your money, how you need to deal with your possessions, what you'd like to do around the factors of where do I live, how do I live, what does home feel like. One of the ways that this can express is that you're ready to simplify. That's also the South Node and Mars going through your fourth house. And then, of course, we've spoken at length already about the Pluto going through the ninth. I'm going to save that one for when I do the Uranus video again, because that will emphasize that story of Pluto. Your ruler, Mercury, is also just a few days after the new moon going to be in opposition to Pluto. So we'll talk about that as well. So times to really get clear, really get serious about yourself, about what it is that you're hoping for and planning for the future, with a sense of really taking that seriously for the long run. That's the Saturn going into the 11th. So, all right, I think we'll leave it at that, Gemini. So good luck with all this, and I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This is obviously really affecting you because it's your new moon, and you've got you've got Jupiter moving into Cancer for over a year. And so there's a whole new start, and yet that new start feels like it's just spinning your wheels. As I mentioned in the introduction, some of you might be feeling this along with me, where the Saturn-Neptune square Jupiter, and now the new moon itself also, and just the day before, the Sun conjoining Jupiter was squared, also separating from that square with Saturn and Neptune. There's such a feeling of things not quite being right, want this thing, want to move in this direction. It's not really panning out. And my way of dealing with that, good Cancer way, was to do nothing and to literally withdraw. And that's a very strong symbol of Cancer. People often mock that, but for me, it's a conscious withdrawal where this might be something that helps you as well, or maybe you do that instinctively as well, where the withdrawal is because it's not clear what's next, and it feels mentally, physically, or psychologically exhausting to try and figure things out or to try and move your way through. Because remember, for Cancer, we feel so extremely what everybody else is feeling. We tap in so much to the emotional field around us, to the psychic field or the psychological field around us. And this is a way of also staying in in your shell or in your protective zone, where that means that you can sort of wait for the opportune moment then to move out, just like a good little crab. And it's true more than ever in this particular configuration, because that square with Saturn-Neptune means that things are not really moving in the direction that you anticipated. I'll share a little personal anecdote with those of you here, simply because the last 6 or more months, 7, 8 months probably, I've been going through this incredible spiritual awakening that just has me finding it more and more difficult to function in day-to-day life, more and more difficult to have a sense of what to plan ahead for. And these are things that have happened to me in many stages of my life. And I realized that that is part of my Jupiter return. Every time that Jupiter comes back to Gemini, I have these sometimes quite debilitating experiences of a spiritual awakening, often after Jupiter leaves Gemini and goes into Cancer. And I think I relayed in a previous video how I nearly died after my second child was born. And at that point, the North Node, Jupiter, Venus, and there was maybe something else, were all in Cancer. So busy times. And so you might be feeling the same. Let me know in the comments if you are. You're in good company if you're finding it difficult to grapple with this hard and fast so-called reality. Also, Pluto has moved into the 8th house now over the last 2 years. It's staying there. It's still moving back and forth through the first 3.5 degrees or so. And it's going to be part of a configuration, which I'll talk about in another video, which involves Uranus going into the 12th house for Cancer. So this incredible feeling of things are all happening behind the scenes. This is also the South Node here in the 3rd house, where there's a different way of thinking, and that's particularly strong since January. Different way of communicating about things, a different way of taking action or deciding things or dealing with things in the day-to-day. In a way, it's a relief having Mars in the 3rd house, because it brings a certain amount of needing to do something about stuff. And that Mars is, of course, ruling the 10th house and ruling the 5th house. So there may be something about personal self-expression, or it can be around children, or it can be around projects that need to be dealt with. 5th house has a relationship to students and teaching as well. And of course, the 10th house is anything to do with your social activities, not social activities, but the way that you reach out into society, let's say, the way that society sees you. So the 11th house is society. It's the people and the places that you mingle within society. But the 10th house is your way of reaching into it. And how you show up outside your front door is a way of, I say that. It could be your vocation. It could be, the fact that you're married or not married. It can be your, of course, career as well. And that is something that's really strong on your mind at this point, because Mars going through the 3rd house now has got you thinking a lot about it and actually dealing with the nitty-gritty of it. I'm in my accounting, for example. I don't know what you're doing with the Mars in the 3rd, but that's directly related to my everyday work and the stuff that I need to do to make my work viable or make it possible. So Venus is up in the 11th with Uranus getting closer and closer until the end of the month. Then Venus meets up with Uranus, and then they will both go into the 12th house. So again, for Cancers, this is a moment where it's a really good time to slow down and steady yourself and nourish and come deeper within. I think also that a lot of people will be expecting to lean on Cancer, and that's always an unconscious thing for the most part. So it's all the more important to nurture yourself, take care of yourself, and fill your own cup, so that there's something that you can give back out, because that expectation will be there coming from all different quarters. And of course, the North Node is in the ninth house, ruled by this Jupiter in the first house. So for the next year, there's a very, very strong impulse to come to this aspirational notion of what life is all about. Why am I here? And what's my role in all of this? How should I be dealing with all of this? So this can be in some way, shape, or form the new beginning that you're starting, or you might have already reflected on this quite considerably in the last little while as Jupiter was going through the 12th house for Cancer. And you may have already been mulling this over in good detail. The difference is now with Jupiter in the first house, you're more visible doing it. There's something about you that is showing up. When the square from Saturn-Neptune passes, this will become more clear. So there'll be a greater sense of ease in doing things and going forward with things. But nonetheless, the Saturn-Neptune in the 10th house is changing your frame of reference for everything that is your ambition and your aims and your career goals, or your participation in the thing that you do out in the world. And so this is a long-term setup that we've got here. So it's not such a bad thing that the Jupiter squaring Saturn and the Saturn squaring everything going on in Cancer is actually slowing things down. You can think of it as an opportunity to really mull over, have I got the tools that I need? Have I got the energy that I need? Have I got the plan that I need to go forward? And as Mars is going through the third house, it's a good time for that strategizing, for the planning stage. The acting upon the plan will come. It's coming later. And of course, the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So when the moon is in the first house, it's also, again, that happens once a month. It's not extraordinary, but it's also an important time to refill your cup. So a good thing to do on a conscious level as well right now. Yeah, and I think I'll come to the rest when we do the future videos, when we talk more about Uranus, when we talk more about Mercury going into your second house, where it's going to stay for 2 months, because that's a retrograde cycle. Mercury in Leo is its next retrograde cycle in July, August. So the issues around family, around your values, around money, and so on, are also going to be taking a very prominent role in the summer, or at least in the northern hemisphere summer, in the time to come. The Black Moon Lilith opposition to Uranus is happening from the 5th house to the 11th house. So there may be something about what frustrates you in terms of your ability to express yourself and how you want to be seen, how you need to change how you're seen, or your vision for the future. That you're realizing that there's something that is that feels a little bit unsafe, or it feels a little bit risky about the future, or about how you're fitting in to the people around you in a broader sense, not necessarily your special relationships, your more one-on-one relationships, but rather the larger story. And especially as Uranus is going into the 12th for Cancer, there might be even more of a sense of coming to a place, in interior place, or an actual physical place that feels a little more withdrawn. And that will bring you more creative energy, more mental peace, and so on. So this is maybe at this point, this peak of frustration that's there between Black Moon Lilith and opposing Uranus can actually serve you, where it clarifies what you at least don't want. This is also the Mars in conjunct Saturn-Neptune in the 10th. The last few days will have shown you very clearly what you don't want. And sometimes that's enough to know. It's not really sure where you are going with that, but at least you eliminate a certain amount of things. And that's certainly the aim also of the South Node going through the third. Right, Cancer, make the most of this. Listen to the intro, especially because it does concern you directly. And I'll see you in the next video. Leo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So this is happening, this new moon is happening in your 12th house. And that's the aspect of yourself that you're not really consciously aware of. So it can be the unconscious mind, or it can be your dream state, or it can be the things that you do that you don't realize that you do, sort of more the shadow aspects of yourself. It can also be something to do with people or places at a distance. They're too far away for you to see them, or things that are going on in a way that you're not really clear what's going on. So the moon and the sun creating a new moon, there is some new start in this area of your life, which is about the notion of how to live my life from the inside out, from the spirit out. And the sun, of course, being your ruler, is preparing you for living more outwardly. And that comes in your season. So once the sun moves into Leo, that's going to be around the 20th or 21st of July, then you're going to be feeling your batteries are recharged and now you can go back out into the world. You'll have Mercury moving back and forth in your first house as it's going to be retrograding in Leo in July and August. So at the time you have your birthday, many of you will have a retrograde Mercury as well. So there's something that you're reflecting on in terms of your life in a big way, and maybe especially concerning values as it rules your second house, where we have Mars and the South Node as well. With Jupiter having just met up with your ruler, the Sun, there is a whole big focus on your inner experience of life that might connect you back to ancestors, that might connect you back to family, that people that you knew, or it can be spirit guides or people that you have never known that you consider to be teachers and guides. That may be in an ancestral way, or it may be in a way that just feels like this is my lineage. This is my teacher. These are my people. Can be very nourishing for you. And then that Jupiter is ruling the eighth house where we have the North Node, and the eighth house, second house axis is where we find issues to do with money and trust and what we're sharing with other people, including intimacy. And that's definitely tied in with the 12th house where Jupiter is, which is also has the notion of bed pleasures. And so there may be some new start around intimacy and connecting in a very sensual way with someone, or in an emotional way, because we're talking about the Cancer new moon. So you might be embarking on a whole new relationship. There might be something that's fresh within your relationship, or there's a realization around how to be in relationships. Certainly because Pluto has been going through your seventh house rather, for the past 2 years plus, and back and forth. It's permanently there now for the next basically 2 decades. And so it's changing you in relationship. It's changing the dynamics around relationships. And one of the ways for you to feel yourself or feel your place within relationship is to understand that intimate connection. How can I feel the intimate bond in relationship? And then, of course, Saturn-Neptune in your ninth house is squaring the Jupiter and new moon conjunction. So the ninth house has a lot to do with father, teachers, father figures, people that you might consult with, lawyers, astrologers, people like that. And there's something here that feels like it's holding back. There's a block in some way there. Mars, which is ruling that, is in the second house, which represents family or possessions or values or money. And there may be something here around reconfiguring your notion of values or your sense of why you're here. And again, this is feels like there's a lot of spiritual juice behind this time in your life. So the feeling of why you're here might become more and more spiritual than it has been before. Or at least, let's say, with a purpose, and it doesn't have to be spiritual. And when I say spiritual, don't make the connection between that and you running off to a monastery or something. It's you living your life through your spirit, or through what feels more holy you. That's also the highest quality of Leo, is to be coming through life from the heart. And you have to be in touch with the Cancer part of your chart to be able to do that. And Cancer is about, how do I feel? What are my emotional motivations? What am I feeling insecure about? And when you can be in that place of security, you can come fully with your heart through the rest of life. So this is also maybe about challenging yourself to realize, this is what I know, this is what I have faith in, this is why I'm here, and this is what I want to do with that. It's a process. So think of this as the seeding moment where you start to have bigger realizations around that whole story. And it's building you up to something that's going to prepare you for Jupiter moving into your sign as of the end of June in 2026. So this is, again, filling your cup and getting a sense of, what is my inner motivation that allows me to then jump out into my Leo leadership quality. Remember, true leadership is leading from behind or just showing, it's modeling, it's not bossing people around. So when you're bossing people around, you know that you haven't integrated your Cancer elements. You haven't integrated the 12th house of you. And especially because Pluto's in your 7th, you are going to get that pushed back at you in a powerful way if you're not acting from this deeper inner strength, because then you're going to have people outside of you pushing you around, and you'll learn where your strength lies in an uncomfortable way. So Venus is in your 10th, which is a really lovely place for Venus to be, and she's just about to conjoin Uranus at the top of your chart. They will move into your 11th. I will do a separate video about that. And so you're on the precipice of a different vision for yourself going forward. So again, this is all kind of hanging in the air. It's not really fully formed yet. So just give it a while. Remember that the time that Jupiter comes out of the beams is when we have a full moon that will be in your 6th house of your purpose in terms of your everyday obligations and the stuff that I have to do, the day-to-day work, the day-to-day schlepping, the things that I need to get organized. So this is it's preparation, seeds of preparation. So relax into that, go deep inside, especially at this time. It's a good time to overcome unconscious patterns, family patterns, addictions. Like Caroline May says, we can have addictions to being right, for example, or addictions to my opinions, addictions to, especially when Mercury is going to be retrograding in your sign, going back and forth, and check those things. And am I addicted to my opinions? Am I addicted to my politics or whatever the thing is? So this is a great time to check in with all of that. And you've got the time. Don't feel rushed. You've got the time. As a fire sign, you might feel that you're always having to jump in, but it's a good time to just slow it down and see how things emerge. All right, Leo, have a great month ahead, and I will speak to you in the next video. So Virgo, you have your ruler up in the 11th house, along with Jupiter and this new moon. So there's a lot of your attention going on in the space that we could describe as your future or your vision for the future, what you'd like to see happen, your dreams and your visions for yourself going forward in life. It's a beautiful signature because you've got Jupiter in really strong dignity, you've got the moon in her rulership, and you've got your sign, or sorry, your ruler, Mercury ruling your sign up there as well. And Mercury also rules your 10th house. So this can have something to do with social status. Maybe now it's like, we're finally going to get married. You've got the North Node ruled by Jupiter in the 7th. You know what? We're going to start this family. We're going to get married. We're going to establish this long-term business partnership because this is the time. I've met the right person. I've got the right people backing me. I've got the vision. I have everything sorted out. And if that's not happening yet, then this is certainly the seed to be planted. And you want to move forward with that vision that you're holding energetically, emotionally, and in your mind and heart. The South Node is in your 1st house. What that means is that there's a long journey here about shedding a way of being, shedding an image of yourself, shedding a way of relating to other people, especially because that obviously means the North Node is in your 7th. So there's new people or new ways of relating to people coming through this journey. And that's ruled by the Jupiter in the 11th. So you're also connecting with what's important to you in terms of society or in terms of the bigger picture of life. The 11th house is also the house of gains, money that you earn from what you do, and especially as Mercury is there, your ruler, is there and ruling the 10th house of your career. There might be a raise, or there may be a promotion, or there may be something here that is positive, good news, something really helpful. You've got Mars in your 1st house, so you're all fired up about something. Mars is also representing your 3rd house of contracts, your everyday life, your neighbors and your space, the space around you, the local space, your siblings. This also can tie in between the 3rd house and the 11th house, something to do with siblings, especially an elder sibling. And 3rd house is also the contracts and things that you agree to in terms of how you just negotiate anything. It's like, what's the price? I'll pay that. Okay. we're done. How you exchange things of all kinds, exchanging ideas, exchanging money. And of course, then that Mars is also ruling your eighth house of other people's money, where we find Saturn and Neptune. So you're also recognizing something needs to be established long term in terms of how you expect to receive from other people or how you are actually receiving from other people. That might be a marital arrangement, some need for a new agreement around marriage, or how the marriage is sharing resources, or how you're sharing intimacy within the marriage as well. And of course, it can also be representing what you receive from clients if you work in that way. So if you have clients, they are in the seventh house, and what you receive from them is the eighth house. So this might be true for some of you who, if you're working independently, and you're finding yourself needing to renegotiate how you do your fees, for example, how you do your cancellation policy or whatever. The thing is that needs structure, because we're talking about Saturn. So something new needs to be established here, but it's not yet clear what that is. Or it could be that that vision that you're having, the vision that you are holding for the future, or the way that you want to reach out into society or into your networks, is being held back by something that's not clear, because the eighth house is also the house of secrets. There may be something that's establishing what you might call, like something that's not clear, or that even might be unconscious in terms of your own family history. Saturn rules your sixth, rules your fifth, so there may be something holding you back that's actually coming from you. Especially as Mars is in the first house, it would be a good time to really explore that and take action based on that. And when I say that, it's like I've been anxious for this, that, and the other thing for this many years, and it's the time now to question that. Is that anxiety founded in anything? I'm holding myself back because I don't think I'm good enough. Is that true? This kind of thing. So that's what the South Node going through your first house is all about. It's like, really question who I think I am in this world, really question how I show up in this world, really question your way of living day to day. Because there's a part of you that you need to drop, and it might be this part that's quite debilitating, that makes you realize I'm holding myself back. That's also partly because we see Chiron also there in Aries going through your eighth house. Venus is approaching Uranus. So by the end of June, Venus and Uranus are conjoining. And then Venus moves into your 10th house of career. And 1 week later, Uranus moves into your 10th house of career. So there's a huge change. The 10th house is also your social reputation, or your how society sees you, your social status, like marital status or career status or whatever. And so there's a big shift happening here, and it's all outwardly apparent. So there's a lot of what's coming through you that is going to be demonstrably changing as you go through life. Part of this dynamic is also what we've seen already with Pluto going through the sixth, which is changing your everyday life, but also changing your relationship to everyday life, changing your relationship to the notion of obligation and duty. Again, you're a Virgo, so you've got Saturn ruling your sixth house. I got to do it. Don't have a choice. I got to do this for the greater good. Question that, or question what the it is. All of those things are important. So I think that's pretty much it, Virgo. I think you've got a good, really lovely placement, because Jupiter is in its house of its joy in the 11th house, and it's exalted. So woohoo, it's a brilliant place for Virgo at this time. So really, really make the most of that. And I will come back with more in the next video. Libra, this new moon is happening at the top of your chart. Of course, along with Jupiter, which you're having at the top of your chart for a year. And that's a wonderful place to have a new moon, because there's a whole new sense of your priorities or your aims and ambitions for your career, for example, or the thing that you'd like to set out to do in this month ahead, or in this longer extended period of time. that can also correspond to a journey of a year and a half. I forgot to mention that there were so many things in the introduction that I forgot to mention the lunar family. So I'll do that in a separate video. So this is a great time for career planning a new business partnership, planning around relationship, especially a relationship that is durable, a serious one. If you have had difficulties in relationships or business partnerships, this will smooth things out a lot, especially because Saturn, which is really good for you, it's your exaltation ruler, is in your seventh house. So it's putting it's helping to restructure dynamics in relationships. At this particular juncture, it's not easy. It's not really helpful. Because there's something that needs to be redone, something needs to be reconsidered, or that is not yet fully ready, that you are having to reflect upon. Even if you do go ahead with something at this time, it's very likely that you'll have to backtrack a little bit. So give it a break, give it, let's say, a week or 10 days till the full moon, pardon me, so you can see what needs changing and how you want to do that. I'm just going to pause for a minute because my cough is coming back, and I'll be right back. Okay, Libra, that was a little break also to feed the dog. Now she'll leave us alone, and I'll come back to what I was saying about the relationships restructuring, if that was where we were, I think, that you are undergoing for a long term. So this is a good time to take it slow and to notice that when things are not working or if things are not going in the direction that you had hoped that they would, or that you had, aspired to, let's say, don't despair. It's about long-term planning. These are slow-moving planets, Jupiter and Saturn, especially Neptune. So things will change over a very, very long term. And Jupiter is ruling the North Node in your sixth house. So last year, particularly this whole past year, or maybe 18 months, you will have had a lot of focus on your sixth house, especially because, even longer, 2.5 years. Saturn was there, and for the previous 14 years, Neptune was there. So the North Node there is just continuing the emphasis on your everyday life and your relationships and maybe also your health, but now with a stronger emphasis on how you reach out into relationships and who are you in relationship and who are you relating to. Your ruler Venus is in the eighth house, so that's also where that's the other rulership of Venus. So you are one of them, and Venus also rules Taurus, which is your eighth house from Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising. And Venus is focusing on romantic intimacy, for example, or psychological, or even emotional intimacy with the people in your life, but also on what you might receive from them in general. That can be money, it can be what you receive from business partnership or clients, or it can be what you receive from your marital relationships, or even inheritance. If there's an individual who's deceased, perhaps through a woman particularly, as it's ruled by Venus, and Venus is there, you are gaining benefit through an inheritance or through some kind of good fortune, or maybe your clients are women, and then that brings you to a better place financially. Venus and Uranus are going to be moving into your ninth house. I'll be doing a separate video on that. But that means that there's going to be a lot less of the focus on that eighth house. How do I share? How do I reach into trust and abundance? Financial security might start to feel a little bit more like a thing of the past or meaning like the worry around it, because Uranus has been shaking that up for quite some time. The things that come with what you share with others, whether it's money or values or the stuff that you might receive from others, whether they be clients or your family. Mars is in your 12th house, and that's also where there's quite a lot of unconscious activity or things that might come through that are not helpful. It might be where you're starting to realize that habits or ways of thinking or people that might be in your life are causing some disruption to your peace of mind or to the way that you reach out into life. And Mars rules your seventh house of relationships, so this can actually have some stronger impact on your relationships as well. if there is any hidden stuff going on with Venus in the 8th, for example, and Mars in the 12th, especially as Mercury is at the top of your chart and soon to go retrograde in the 11th, that will be revealed. So Mercury going retrograde in the public house where people, friends, and so on will be speaking, will be sharing information. If there is anything untoward or something that you shouldn't be doing behind closed doors, this would be a good time to stop that or to make it right. And that's part of the Saturn-Neptune in your 7th. Put a ring on it or do the right thing by whatever this dynamic might be. Pluto is going through your 5th house of children, and if you don't have actual children, it can be projects that feel like you've birthed them or created them, or the way that you express yourself creatively, and that's a longer dynamic. But that Pluto has been playing a big role in terms of its ongoing connection to Saturn and Neptune. And it's also in a quincunx to the Jupiter new moon conjunction in your 10th house. So there's something of the way that you're expressing yourself that you might be doubting now, or that you're not sure of, or you're having to revise, because Pluto is retrograding now. And in that quincunx, it is asking you to reflect on something, and this something is going to bring the next new thing. So it doesn't mean you were necessarily doing something wrong, or that there's anything wrong, perhaps in the lives of your children, for example, or in your creative expression. It just means that there's now a new thing that needs to be thought about. It's going to be dealt with in a different way. And there is a sextile from Pluto to Saturn, Neptune, and that also makes it a little smoother. So you can take action on this to stabilize relationships as a result of whatever this is that you're realizing in the 5th house. I think we've covered all our bases there, Libra. So I'm going to leave it for now, and we'll come back to more of those themes in the next video. Scorpio. Actually, what I'm going to do for Scorpio is we are going to go back to the initial chart, because it was was it not a Scorpio rising? Have I got that wrong? Okay, guess not. So we're going to put it this way then. Sorry. We just want to go to Scorpio rising without losing our moon. There we go. So, oh, actually, yeah, it might have been the Jupiter-Sun conjunction that was a Scorpio rising. Anyway, here we have for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. We have this new moon happening in your 9th house of your sense of what am I here for? What is life all about? What do I want to do with my life? How do I relate to important teacher figures or men like my father, for example, father type figures? The dynamic of guidance counselors or astrologers or lawyers or people like that. These are all uppermost on your mind. You might have a new sense of a higher philosophy coming online, something that you are more keenly interested in now, maybe more of a focus on a broader perspective of life, whether that be more political or whether that be philosophical and spiritual. It's going to impact you for a long time to come, because this is influenced by not only this new moon, which is a shorter period of time, but also the conjunction of Jupiter and the Sun and the new moon, which is actually a stabilizing factor for about a year. That theme holds for about a year. So quite a big deal. This might also have to do with travel or living far away or going to a place where you're learning or connecting, like a conference or place to learn from, like a pilgrimage or a center of higher learning, university or something like that. And all the more so because your ruler Mars is in the 11th house. So you're thinking a lot about your future right now. That includes how you reach out into not only your life, but into society in general, and your vision and your hopes for the future. Mars also rules not only you, but your 6th house of your work. And that's where we find, well, 6th house is your health as well, health habits, your daily habits, your routines, obligations and challenges that can come up. And that's where we find Saturn and Neptune squaring Jupiter and this new moon in your 9th house. So this, whatever the big thing is that you want to stretch into, it's being inhibited in some way briefly at the very, beginning of this transit. by the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the sixth house. So there's something you still have to do. You have to deal with something. You have to take care of something. You have to recognize some maybe health issue or maybe an issue to do with a promise or an agreement that you made previously that you now have to fulfill. And it might be like, I don't want to do that anymore. That's not really the thing I want to do anymore. And this might be your literal job. I don't want to do this job anymore. Saturn is important in terms of your third house of communication and your neighborhood and the local space, as well as what connects you to your expanded family, as well as your home and literal physical home and property and your lineage and people you come from. So there may be obligations around health issues with family members. So it's not your health, but somebody at home, a sibling or cousin or mother, uncle, needs your attention and help and support. And that is the thing that is kind of holding you back from this higher vision that you have, or this sense of, okay, this is the new thing now. And it's kind of like, and no, we're not going to be doing that right now. So don't worry, it's a factor that will evolve in the next couple of weeks, especially up to the Capricorn full moon, when that becomes more clear and the path becomes clearer. And we'll talk about that in another video. Venus is with Uranus in your seventh house, and that's about your relationships in all different ways, the important one-on-one relationships, and that can include clients, and it can include your spouse, and it can include business partners of all kinds, the different ways that you relate to people. With Venus there, it's a very helpful placement. So you have a lot of benefit there, support from other people, relationships that are conducive to more constructive vision of the relationship, regardless of the quality of the relationship or the type of relationship. And since Mercury will also be super slow at this point, slowly moving through your 10th house, you might be finding that you'll be spending a lot of time on business partnerships, on business relationships, or on long, like firming up relationships in the sense of like a marital partnership or something that is socially recognizable, because Mercury will be soon to go into your 10th and retrograding there in your 10th house, which is significant. It's an angular house and a very significant place for Scorpio. Pluto, your modern ruler, which I don't use. I do use Mars. I prefer Mars because it's more personal. These are more the collective energies or whatever, but some people use Pluto as the modern ruler. Is in the fourth house. It's anyway significant because it's changing your frame of reference to your home, what makes you feel secure, what makes you feel at ease in a physical place, in a place you can call a house or home, or in a metaphysical place where you're feeling your emotional security or your psychological nature, your psychological self in a place of security. And that will be changing and needing a lot of attention and change for the next couple of decades. So this is a big journey, and it's soon to be opposed by that Mercury. So I will take care of that in another video, but just keep that in mind, that part of whatever this dynamic is depends a lot on the foundation you create for yourself from the interior. So your inner foundation, your psychological or emotional foundation becomes very, very important. And Saturn is ruling that fourth house from the sixth house. So these obstacles or the things that are holding you back or needing your attention are part of this story. Just one example of this is, I'm in a job that I hate that's making me sick, for example. Now, what do I do about that? They are sextiling, Saturn-Neptune sextile Pluto back to your fourth house, and Saturn's ruling that. So there's a big story here that you can look deeper into in terms of, am I really doing the thing that I want? Is this aligning with who I am in this moment? Especially because that big question is there in your ninth house. Jupiter with this new moon and even Mercury up there thinking a lot about, why am I here? And is that working with this job? Am I working just for the money? Jupiter rules your second house of money, and in this case, Jupiter is saying we can do better. We want to do something that comes from a place of what we can offer out. And an example, as I gave in the introduction, is that AI is creating a certain amount of obsolescence around some jobs, and yet it also is highly subject to mistakes. And so there will always be room for uh, people, real people, to do things, and at the very least to be checking up on whether ChatGPT or whatever AI is doing its job. Um, Right. I think that's it. So yeah, your ruler in the house of the future, the house of gains, what you gain from your work, is putting a lot of your attention there for the next month and a half, pretty much. And then later I will also do a video, but in July, your ruler connects with the South Node. So there's something about that future vision or about your way of fitting in that you're ready to let go of, or that must be let go of. And that's shaping also what you're going through right now. So, or being shaped by what you're going through right now. All right, Scorpio, good luck with that. I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, you are ruled by Jupiter, so this is quite significant for you. And Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, although it's hidden away in your eighth house. So your eighth house is Cancer, where we find the new moon and the Jupiter conjoining. And this is a story that goes over a couple of days. So this is a kind of a mini theme for this period of time. Do listen to the introduction, because I'm speaking a lot about the energies around this time. And for you, Jupiter also is ruling your fourth house of home, as well as yourself, but it also represents your metaphorical or metaphysical home, my sense of security, my sense of emotional stability, my sense of groundedness, which is one of the reasons why Sagittarius is rarely grounded, because Pisces rules your fourth house. And so Jupiter in the eighth has you also focusing quite a lot on what is unconscious or psychological in your life. That might be experiences around family trauma, that might be experiences around what you've inherited, quite literally, from family, if there is an inheritance on the way for some of you. This will be resolved in this year ahead, and it can be quite favorable to you. It can be very, very favorable. So at the very least, we'll be offering you some kind of financial security. And so there's a great deal of benefit coming to you through others at this time. The eighth house also has to do with the mysteries of life, astrology, for example, and the more mystery school stuff like Tantra and anything tarot and mystical things, as well as psychological things. And so this is also a time that you would benefit a lot from learning around these things, or from consulting with someone who does these things, because there's a lot of benefit, meaning that you'll get helpful consultation, or you will get good advice from a counselor, from a therapist, from a person who has your best interests at heart. So Mercury, which rules the seventh, is now in the eighth. And so there may be some dynamic around relationships that you're ready to talk about more intimately, that you're ready to open up more about and communicate more fully about. Your fifth house is where we find Saturn and Neptune, and that is in the square to Jupiter and the new moon. And that we saw in the introduction is quite a big deal, because it can be a source of frustration, and most especially for fire signs. Because there's this kind of need to hold back, which is generally not the signature of fire signs. There's a desire to get going, the desire to just show up and start doing. And this will be something that you will not only currently be confronted with in terms of feeling like there's something stuck, something holding me back, in your case, in the self-expression of things, or in maybe the relationship dynamic you have with children, or in the needs of your children that mean you have to put more of your time into their needs. But it also can reflect something to do with your, the way you want to start something new, and yet it's not taking off. If there's a new love relationship, for example, especially as Venus is in your 6th house. Venus rules your 11th in terms of the future. There's something maybe holding you back in relationship. 5th house is where we find love as well, lovers and romance. The partner or the new potential partner might live in another country, or they're in another relationship that they're working their way out of, for example. Things like this can happen, where the plans are delayed, or there's something that needs to be revised, or there's a test of the relationship itself, potentially. And again, if it doesn't pass the test, then great, you found that out. And if it does pass the test, then great. Now you can move forward, but it just won't be easy at this particular time. And we've got also at the top of your chart, Mars is moving through Virgo until the end of July. And there you'll have quite a lot of ambition and drive around your thing that you want to do in your career. Like, what are my aims, my goals in career? My ambitions, my social ambitions, my vision for what I do out in the world. Something is changing there because we've had the South Node moving through there since January, and it continues its journey there for a year, another year, and the North Node is in the 4th. So there's a lot of you that's no longer interested in what you're doing, don't want that job anymore, or not in that format, or not in that place, and I need to find a new way to do this thing. So Jupiter in your 8th house will also help you through this process of getting to this new thing that is the North Node in the 4th house, and establishing something that makes you feel better about what's going on. This might even be around working from home. Jupiter is in the 8th house of money that comes from clients. So if you work with clients, and we see that Mercury is there too, if you're thinking about this, Saturn also going through the 5th is about establishing something that you love to do, something that brings you a creative expression of yourself into a lasting job, like not just a job, but a business, an entrepreneurial thing. And certainly the Saturn journey of the next 6 or 8 months, where it's going back and forth between your 5th house and your 4th house, will help you figure that out. But it might be that you're establishing a home business. This will be a great time to do that if you are. But again, keeping in mind there'll be this chunky delay. Right. Sorry about the clearing my throat, but I'm still getting over whatever this damn thing was. And it means that I cough every now and then, and I just can't talk for a very long time. And I just realized I've been talking for a very long time. So sorry, Sagittarius. I think we've said what we needed to say, though, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now. So Capricorn, your ruler, Saturn, is squaring this moon and Jupiter in your 7th house of relationship. So there's something going on in terms of home, or what makes you feel emotionally, psychologically secure, or even, in connection with your mother. 4th house can also represent mothers, what nourishes you, what nurtures you, what makes you feel secure. And it's in a square to Jupiter and the new moon. So there's some new relationship here, maybe with your mother, quite literally, because the moon representing mother is in her home sign of Cancer, again, emphasizing the story of mother. And if not, it can be in a relationship to what you need to feel secure in a relationship in general, how the nurturing is manifesting in a relationship. You have a really good year ahead for relationship dynamics. Really solid. It can be that, again, depending on the nature of your Jupiter, whether this pans out for you in a good way or not, it can be a time to establish or to say goodbye to a relationship that works either way in your favor. Venus is in your 5th house really strong because she's in her own sign, and she's in her joy in the 5th house. So that's brilliant for both relationships, which is why I think this is probably more about helpful dynamics in relationships rather than not so helpful ones. Again, it depends on your chart. But Venus also rules your 10th house of your marriage, your social status, your career, your ambitions, and so on. And so there's a lot that supports really favorable dynamics in those kinds of relationships. Saturn is making you reestablish the foundations of your life. And this is going on for a couple of years. It'll continue right through till early 2028. And this year it goes back and forth, but it is your ruler and very, very significant because of that. So you're in a process of trying to figure things out from the place of your the options that you have or the choices that you need to make and what it is that you want to establish as this foundation. And how you establish this foundation will have an effect on the next 14 or 15 years. You'll see the results of it in a very long term. So notice in terms of the square to Jupiter and the new moon, is there somebody in your life that you're realizing, yeah, I want this person in my life for a very long time, or I really need to have new people in my life for the next long time because I realize I'm not getting what I need, or I'm not relating in the way that's best for me in the long term. Um, so this either way is going to be favorable to you. I do think it's more positive than challenging. Your exaltation ruler Mars is in the ninth house, which is quite dynamic for a vision of what you want, but it also represents the house of the father. For me, I use the Indian way of looking at that. Mother is 4, father is 9, the 10th house is parents. Ninth house is also our teachers and guides, people who help us through things. And again, Mercury is ruling that from the 7th house. So there's some relatively favorable energy here also in terms of people who give you counsel or who are there for you and helping you out. Mercury will be going into your 8th house of what you receive through relationships. That can also be about inheritance, and it's retrograding there. And there may be something there that is about having to negotiate or work through what you receive from others, and that can be quite literally financially. And I will come back and do more videos about that. But Venus and Uranus are both moving in, first Venus and then Uranus moving into your 6th house of work. So this feeling of what you're getting now in terms of how do I express my happiness and what makes me feel, joy, what makes me feel connected, what makes me feel abundant, you're going to be bringing that into a new sense of what your day-to-day structure is like. And that can include an actual job, or it can include a lifestyle that brings you better health, for example, or just a better quality feeling to your everyday life. So focus on that at this time. And then also Uranus is being opposed by Black Moon Lilith in the 11th. So there's something that may be about a fear or a challenge coming from society or the future. If it's a generalized fear, if it's something that just kind of this vague thing, like I don't trust the government, or I don't trust I don't know, those people, that group, that dynamic, that color, whatever it is, really sit with it. Don't let that get to you because it will agitate you. That is for sure. You've got the North Node in the 3rd house, so Lord knows you're mentally agitated at this time. But things should calm down considerably very soon after this new moon. So, with a few days or a week after this new moon, you will see that things start to make more sense. Listen to the introduction and don't let yourself get too carried away into the noise of society. So I think we've covered everything I wanted to mention here for Capricorn. Of course, there's always more, but based on your natal chart, it will be more clear for you. And I think that's the important stuff. All right, so we'll leave it there. Oh yeah, Cancer. Mercury in Cancer has been squaring Chiron in your 4th. Cancer's busy for you, so that's important because it's a 7th house, 1st house axis, and then the 4th house is where we have the other actions. So it's reestablishing something of the foundations of your life. That's true for all the cardinal signs. And with the Chiron squaring, or rather being squared by Mercury, there's something again about relationship that's coming back to your sense of your capacity to feel secure emotionally and psychologically, or to feel grounded and secure within your home or in relationship or within your lineage and how you connect to your family going back. So maybe something needs to be spoken about, connecting on a level of emotions. And having that conversation will be easier now because Jupiter, that's ruling your 3rd house of communication, is there in your 7th, along with just at this moment Mercury, which is ending its journey through there. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Good luck with that, Capricorn, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, this new moon is in your 6th house of your everyday life, your work and obligations, and we find Jupiter there. So we know, because also Saturn and Neptune are in your 3rd house, Saturn being your ruler, you're busy, you're doing stuff. There's so much going on. Whatever that is, this might be a period of time where you feel like you're being held back from doing stuff. So you might have a feeling of spinning your wheels, or of things not working out in the way that you really want them to, or of a dynamic that just feels like you can't achieve what you wanted to accomplish. So just give it time, because that square coming from Jupiter back to Saturn, and then combined with the sun and combined with the new moon squaring Saturn, and then Neptune as well, it means that things are not going to pan out the way that you thought they would. So you might actually be finding you're wasting your time and energy. Um, 3rd house, where your ruler is right now, is about choosing. What choice am I making? What am I doing in terms of my everyday? How am I engaging out in society? That's one of the reasons we know that you're individualistic. You walk around the neighborhood as an individual awareness. That's the Aries in the 3rd house for Aquarius, and Mars ruling that is in your 8th. And so there may be something also about what you realize about how you engage with community or with the everyday people in your life, or how you, very importantly, how you communicate verbally, how you reach into conversation. And where Mars in the 8th house might be showing you that there's a lot of tension around that. There's a lot of anger that is maybe buried from family trauma, from the past, from issues that are not being looked at, that need your attention. Now with Jupiter in this conjunction with the new moon, it's an opportunity for you to change your everyday, the way that you approach your everyday life. It can feel more positive. It can feel less heavy, and more of a feeling like, I got this, I can manage this, it'll be okay. Being more serious, let's say, about your tasks, being more serious about your engagements with people, showing up in a way that is genuinely committed and genuinely, true to yourself, without feeling insecure about yourself. This is also a very important part of the Pluto going through your 1st house of self, going through this notion of, who am I actually? How do I show up in the world? And there's a need to change based on your patterns of, maybe awareness, especially over the last 16 years where Pluto was in your 12th house, becoming aware of the unconscious motivations, or the ways that you feel like you don't fit in, that you really work hard to fit in, that you really struggle to fit in. And now you're having a sense of, okay, I see my place now. It's I'm getting where I need to be in my power and just be myself, be who I need to be. Jupiter is also ruling your 2nd house of money, and it rules your 11th house of the future, which is also a money house. And so there could be something here where you're realizing how your values and your everyday life are tied into your income, or tied into the way that you feel abundant, or the way that you get money, or the way that you feel your own value. Your sense of your self-worth is tied in also to a sense of better sense of what I'm doing with my job, what I'm doing with my service, what I'm doing with my contribution every day. So it can be a really rich time, really beautiful opportunity to start this new cycle, especially as it's a new moon. You're planting seeds. There's something new that's happening here. We're just not going to see the result perhaps as quickly as with other new moons. At the very least, it's going to be a couple of weeks to really see things kicking off. Things will still stay kind of hidden and underground before that. Venus is in your 4th house, so for whatever reason, it also feels more comfortable, either comfortable in your skin or comfortable literally in your home where you are. There's a lot more harmony in the home at this time, or in your psychological nature and the way that you feel about yourself. And we have a conjunction with Venus and Uranus coming up at the end of June, and that conjunction is going to be a tipping point where Venus first then moves into your fifth house where she's in her joy. That's a really great place for Venus to be. And then on the 7th of July, Uranus moves in there. So you're preparing yourself, quite literally from the inside out, for a whole new way of presenting yourself, of showing up in the world. And this will all trine back to your Pluto in your first house as well. So a big deal. So you're preparing something that is quite significant, and it will change your everyday. It will change your way of seeing yourself in your day-to-day life. With Mars in the eighth, you also want to be careful of things that might be divisive around whatever has not been spoken, or things that you need to let go of in terms of family trauma or family habits, what you inherited psychologically as well as, materially, potentially. If there is some kind of issue around money or trust, Mars in the eighth house can stir up some problems with that. It can stir up some challenges where it's difficult to come to an agreement. It can be a challenging time in the sense that Mars tends to separation and conflict, and the eighth house is about bringing things together or being in intimacy on the one-to-one level. But the eighth house is also a factor around endings. The seventh and eighth is where we end basically, and because the other begins. It's the setting place of the sun, and so we're having to recognize how we connect with other people makes a difference in terms of how we feel comfortable or not in intimacy. Mars rules your third house, so again, it's about how you're communicating quite literally, and check that out, because maybe there's an extra feeling of fussiness, feeling of frustration with your lot in life, or with the quality of what's going on in your life, that has you not seeing what's already there, what's already good, let's say. And the South Node moving through the eighth also suggests that there's more emphasis on you bringing things to the table rather than relying on other people, and Mars would also be in agreement with that. There's something that is where you need to let go of a particular expectation of what you receive from other people. And it's all an evolutionary, purpose. It's what you're here to learn at this moment. The second house North Node is teaching you how to stand on your own 2 feet financially, or in terms of your own values, or in terms of how you connect with your family. A new way of connecting with your family. Very much supported, by the way, by the Jupiter and the new moon happening in your 6th house. So you might be bringing a lot of support into the family at this time. All right. Good luck with that, Aquarius. I'll see you in the next video. Pisces, your ruler Jupiter is in your 5th house, which is a wonderful place because it's also exalted in Cancer, and it's there with the new moon. And the moon is ruling your 5th house, so there's a lot of reasons to feel very happy. It's a lucky place, a lot of good nature, let's say, good fortune, especially around your children. Your children, if you do have them, will be experiencing good fortune, or they will experience some kind of expansion in your life. In their lives. And it can also be that your relationship with them is just simply improving, or just extra harmonious at this time. If you're planning a family, this also has a really strong impact on you. So either that you become pregnant, or you actually are having the child at this point. And this is extremely benefic, having a child with Jupiter and a new moon here in Cancer. Is extremely fortunate, and especially as Mercury, also representing children, is there too. And so that would be a really benefic and really bonifying factor for the relationship that you have with your child, which is going to happen even if the child is already born. So Jupiter is also in the place of, meaning your ruler is also in the place of where you express yourself. And so there's also a bigger sense of yourself and what you need to reach out into, how you want to express your joys, your happiness, what makes you happy in general, how you are creative, how you reach into that creativity. And it is also the house of love. And again, depending on your natal chart, there may be a story around love. It's not a guarantee that love will be there for you, but it's actually a relatively favorable time, especially because Venus is in her sign in Taurus, and Venus rules your 8th house of intimacy and marriage. Again, this will depend on your natal circumstances because it's not a guarantee. It's just that there's more of an auspicious potential that's there. Saturn is in your 2nd house conjoining Neptune, and they are both squaring or being squared by this new moon and Jupiter. And that's actually a period of a few days. So it's the last week of June, basically, and it continues into July. It's, let's say, most of the second half of June, even. Let's say most of June. Let's just put it at most of June. And the first 10 days or so of July. There's a square there from the 5th house back to the 2nd house. So there might be something here around finances that are a little tense or that are a little bit feeling constrained or feeling like they need more attention. There's a dynamic here that needs attention either way with Saturn in the 2nd house. There's something that you have to establish around your value, your own values, or the money that you're dealing with, your possessions, your stuff. It can be your like furniture. It doesn't have to necessarily be around Bitcoin or something like that. Mars, which is ruling that, is in the 7th house. So there can also be dynamics in relationship which have you feeling tension in relationships, or that there's people coming at you that feel quite strong, that feel quite threatening, or that you have to reach out into relationships in a way that feels more self-assertive. And that doesn't have to mean it's not necessarily abusive. It's just simply that there's a need to step up, need to stand out more. And this is anyway often the case for Pisces. There's a need to be stronger and have better boundaries in the 7th. So Mars will certainly be conducive to that. Venus herself, which is the exaltation ruler of Pisces, in the 3rd house, is going to first move into the 4th house and then followed by the 7th of July by Uranus. So this last couple of weeks, let's say, of Venus and Uranus in your 3rd house, certainly the last week, because Venus reaches out into your 4th house by the 4th of July. That is something that you want to reflect on. Maybe it's even before, by the end of June. Sorry, I've forgotten the dates now. But something you want to reflect on in terms of your way of communicating, the way you are holding space for other people in your life, in your local space, quite literally, a desire to move, a desire or a need to change where you live, changing your neighborhood, changing your home, the actual house and home. This can be very much part of the story, especially as Uranus is going to go into your 4th house, and that will change the quality of your home, what feels like home. It seems favorable because Venus is supporting that action at this point. Mercury, which rules your 4th house, is going to be retrograding in your 6th. So whatever the dynamic is, it might cause a certain amount of toing and froing between July and August. So contracts, which is 6th house, or the things that you have to overcome, the obstacles and difficulties around all those day-to-day things might need a little more attention. So just double check, read the fine print. The usual Mercury retrograde things, which is just to slow down and pay attention. That would be especially around where you live. This can also be around how you connect to the work that you're doing on an intellectual level or even on an emotional level. Do I like what I'm doing? Is this the right thing? Am I able to fully expand into what I want in my life based on what I'm doing? And this would be a great time for you to recognize when that is needing to change. That could be that your values are changing, or there's something around how you're seeing your own value that is still a question mark. And that's part of this process of Saturn going between your 1st and your 2nd house. So the house of self and the house of self-worth and the house of what supports you. And then, with this pile up in the 5th house where you have a lot of energy in terms of what makes me happy, what makes me feel okay, what makes me feel expanded or vital, what brings me joy. It's a very opportune time to really make sure that you're doing the thing that you want to do, because the following year you're going to have Jupiter moving into your 6th house of your everyday work and the things that you have to do every day. So you better set it up for something that you like to do, because you're going to do a lot more of it next year. And Jupiter is your ruler, so always very important in terms of what Jupiter is doing. That's why I'm emphasizing that. Jupiter also rules your 10th, obviously. So that also is very important because what you're doing here and how you're setting yourself up for the thing that really brings you joy and how you want to lean into that or start a new cycle around this is going to affect your social status or your sense of your ambition and your reaching out into the world. What is my career purpose or what is my role in society? And this will come through that very, very powerfully. Chiron in your second house has been working on your self-esteem, but also particularly around your money, how you manage money. Now Saturn is coming in to make sure that that lesson has been understood. And then Neptune is kind of going, I wonder if that makes any sense. So it's a bit of a mixed bag financially for Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. But otherwise quite favorable. The one thing to be careful of, especially because of that mixed bag of finances, is that Jupiter in the fifth house can be extremely self-indulgent. And this is part of the downside of an exalted planet, which is that it's too much of a good thing. And it's too much of a good thing. So that's something to be aware of because that will come with a price tag if you're not paying attention to the way that you value yourself or value your money. So this is a good time to think about having a store of value or money set aside. I think we've covered it all, Pisces, and certainly you should listen to the intro because that will have a lot more detail there about this whole story of Jupiter and this new moon. So thank you for listening all the way to this point. I do appreciate your being here, and I appreciate your reactions and likes and comments and all of those things. It really does keep the channel vital, keeps people paying attention, things maybe people think there's something to listen to. And I do look forward to seeing you in another video. Take good care. Bye.